Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Adam Nicholas from WhatCulture, here to bring you all of today's wrestling news, including WWE have planned a pay-per-view for just 1 week after SummerSlam. They've also announced massive profits, can you believe? And on top of that, there's also been a mistrial in the Jarrett lawsuit.
Plus, WWE are reportedly changing their plans for the Royal Rumble 2021. The real reason Excalibur wasn't on AEW Dynamite this week, and Luke Gallows has revealed what AJ Styles said to him after his WWE release. This is the news. So let's dive straight in with this story around the Royal Rumble. I say changing plans, it's just sort of delaying plans, really. I glanced at this headline and panicked that they may be moving the Royal Rumble to like March or something. Thankfully though, according to WrestleVotes on Twitter, WWE are planning on delaying announcing the 2021 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. They were planning on announcing it early August, but due to the ongoing global bastard and sort of apprehension about how things are going to be by January, they're sort of holding off on that announcement now. Obviously, WWE wanting fans back in the fall, according to reports. We have no idea of knowing what things are going to be like in January with talk of vaccines and things like that, but with the state of things as they are right now, I mean, I can't see fans returning in the fall, and yet this is WWE, this is wrestling, Adam Nicholas. Plans change, and WWE sort of just does what they want, don't they?
They do, and you are, of course, trying to factor in the most unpredictable thing since the global bastard, which is, of course, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Some might even say he's more omnipresent than the global bastard. But yes, everybody wants to see fans back eventually. Yes, of course we do. It's one of the biggest factors in watching wrestling, but ultimately, you kind of hope that they just use that common sense just once and just don't do that in a hurry. As long as everybody's safe, that's what we care about. And to be honest, it's not the worst right now, is it? Like the product might not be great, but at least the actual the middle ground they found between no audience and audience is kind of alright, I think, for right now.
Yeah, I was watching some Impact Wrestling, which has no crowd whatsoever, and it just felt so surreal watching that. Yeah. And yet now watching WWE having NXT members bang on the plexiglass and AEW doing what they're doing, that's the sort of new normal, I suppose that's the phrase that's doing the rounds. Look, the Rumble, the date and location, we kind of can guess it's probably going to be the end of January as always. The location, well, they were desperate to still have SummerSlam in Boston, and that was never going to happen. We could have told you that in bloody April. But the thing is, I suppose, I'd say alongside WrestleMania, obviously you've got the big four, but alongside WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble is the pay-per-view that you need fans the most because there's so many opportunities for pops, whether that be title changes, debuts, returns. I mean, it would be surreal to have a Royal Rumble in the Performance Center, and yet, as you sort of alluded to, if things stay as they are, you haven't really got a decision to be making here, WWE. It's just going to have to happen like that. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, isn't it? Because there's loads of stuff like things like the Royal Rumble, things like we just saw Matt Cardona debuting on AEW, as we have seen many people, and they're not getting the pops, obviously, that they probably would have if they turned up with an arena full of people. Unfortunately, that's just bad timing. Drew McIntyre had to win his first WWE Championship in front of no audience, so these are all things we're going to have to mitigate as they go along. There's not a lot can be done, but you hope common sense prevails in this situation, and fingers crossed we can get back to normal as soon as possible. But you did mention SummerSlam there, Adam Wilborn. Shall we perhaps talk about something weird that kind of ties into SummerSlam, I guess?
Yeah, go on.
So we had rumours previously that WWE were planning a pay-per-view potentially for August the 30th. Now that was notable because it was just 1 week removed from the date for SummerSlam, which was planned, which immediately sounded a few alarm bells. Now we've had a little bit of confirmation here. This comes from WrestleVotes, who are saying that pay-per-view has been added. Pay-per-view? No, not pay-per-view. Payback has been added to the WWE schedule, and it's going to go in on August the 30th. So despite the fact there had been a few tiny little rumours, maybe we were going to get an Evolution 2 pay-per-view, which we were all very excited about. Could this be the one? No, it couldn't, as it happens, because apparently Payback is the pay-per-view that we want to slot in just 1 week after SummerSlam. I'm not really sure about the logic there. I'm sure someone who does the statistics can tell us all about that. But that means now the pay-per-views we have left for this year, assuming, of course, that the Global Bastard allows for all of this. SummerSlam, August 23rd. Payback, August 30th. Clash of Champions, September 20th. Hell in a Cell, October 18th. Another potential trip to Saudi Arabia and Crown Jewel on November the 5th, of course. That will be one I'm sure everybody's waiting to see whether it goes ahead or not. Survivor Series, November 22nd. And TLC, December 20th. Adam Wilborn, if you were going to put a pay-per-view in after SummerSlam, just 1 week removed, is Payback the one you would do?
I mean, yeah, the storied history of Payback, which I think, because I glanced at this story, was this the one with the fridge match with Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, no.
That's the only thing I remember about Payback.
What was it called? I can't remember the exact name for it. House of Horrors. House of Horrors, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, this is my fault for me and Andy Murray after the news yesterday going, it's a bit of a while till the next pay-per-view. That's nice, a bit of time off. And then we just got like SummerSlam and then All Out. Yeah, so we're going to have SummerSlam, Payback potentially, and All Out 3 weekends in a row. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. No. We've got nothing better to do. So looking forward to it. But yeah, like you say, it's surreal because I thought if they're going to put on a pay-per-view, they're going to do the Git move and put it on at the same time as All Out just to mess with them. Yeah. Just to try and beat AEW with sort of B-level pay-per-view. They're not doing that. They're not doing Evolution. And you know what? I'll quickly explain my thought process as well. I thought, you know what they've done here? They're going to do some really good storylines in coming off the back of SummerSlam and go, right, well, if you want, that you're sort of...
Go straight in.
If you want that satiated, well, we've got another pay-per-view next. They're not going to do that. They're just going to finish off all the feuds and then go, Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins again.
It's just going to be that classic... We're going to get to the pay-per-view, the Payback. There's going to be no matches booked whatsoever. And on the night, the social media team are just going to fire out the card like 15 minutes before the show.
Should we preempt this by announcing myself and Adam Nicholas doing the Payback live stream?
Because we don't hate ourselves enough just yet. So we will announce that we'll throw our hats into the ring for the Payback. I keep wanting to call it pay-per-view. For the Payback live stream. That'll be a delight, I'm sure.
I'd love that if they had Paperback Writer as the theme song to Payback. Let's get a little bit serious now because we have to talk about Excalibur on AEW, who's missing, of course, from this week's episode of AEW Dynamite. A lot of speculation swirling online as to the reason behind that, and a lot of those theories have been confirmed by Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave confirmed that he was in attendance for the show, but he was held off of TV. This is all due to the fact that a video from a few years ago from a PWG show has resurfaced showing Excalibur and WWE superstar Kevin Owens using racial slurs during a promo in the early 2000s. Now, to put this in a bit of context, this isn't just completely out of character for these two. Well, it is, I should say. It's because the Human Tornado, who was in charge back then, would apparently encourage people to do promos based around the subject of race to garner more heat. Now this, according to Meltzer, made Owens very uneasy. He was reluctant to do the promo scene in the video. After the event concluded, both Owens and Excalibur realised how big of a mistake they made, apologised for it, but it's one of those things. It's reared its ugly head yet again. I think you can only use the excuse of, this was a few years ago to a certain extent when it comes to this. Like I said, I've caveated by the fact that saying that the guy who's in charge has told them, yeah, go for it. I mean, we'll get you heat. It'll be interesting to see how WWE and probably more importantly, AEW handles this, especially with the whole Sammy Guevara stuff. Hamlet and I were talking about this yesterday, and they kind of put precedent in place, haven't they? They have,
and I think it's tough because obviously we can understand the caveat, but ultimately when it boils down to it, that will be there forever. People will be able to see that video, and a lot of people aren't going to care about the context. And in fairness, even with the context, it's still a judgment call, isn't it? And it's unfortunate that then they've made that call, but it is still a judgment call they made back then. In terms of AEW and WWE, how they handle it, AEW in particular are the one that they've got a blank slate, haven't they? We've seen WWE have sometimes been careful with who they do and don't punish, I should say, and how they go about that. AEW, I think, have a chance to really set a brand new standard here. you could argue that kind of got a lot of the Sammy Guevara stuff right, but then a lot of people might say that perhaps he's back on TV in a prominent position a bit too soon, given the circumstances. And I don't know, it's a learning curve for them as well, because it is a brand new company, but you'd like to see the right decisions being made here, and let's be honest, to avoid stuff like this happening in the future, because there's no place for it, is there?
Yeah, exactly. I don't accept the argument of, oh, well, times change, it was a different time. No, it wasn't. It was the early 2000s. It was still wrong then. You go back and watch, for example, the whole Triple H, Booker T, people like you don't get to be world champion. That was awkward back then. I remember it. And then they still let Triple H win, of course. But yeah, I think this has to be handled, because the other issue here is, and I'm not excusing what they've done, is if you start going back and retroactively punishing wrestlers for things they've done previously, it could be a slippery slope. I'm not saying it is, but it could become something like that, and it could become a bit of a witch hunt, a la looking through old tweets. But like you say, there's no place for stuff like that in wrestling or in the world at all.
No, absolutely not. And the thing is, back as far back then as well, I guarantee you, someone like Kevin Owens will be having held on to that since then. That's probably haunted him, because it's the internet and it's there forever. So it'd be interesting to see what they decide to do between both companies ultimately, especially given the current climate with all that. But let's move on to our next story, and we've got an announcement that Dave Meltzer is bringing us at the Wrestling Observer regarding WWE and their profits. Now, obviously, a different time for WWE right now, because there hasn't been as much production on their side, but there also hasn't been live audiences, and they haven't had the gates from house shows and stuff like that. So you must probably be wondering, what does that mean financially? Well, according to him, it's actually ended up working out all right for them. In the tweet he posted, he said, "We'll have a full story later, but WWE profits for the quarter blew past analyst expectations. They figured 11.5 million to 12 million. The actual figures, though, were $43.8 million, which he says has lots of factors, but they saved tons in producing at the Performance Center and multiple shows together." Obviously, that is in reference to the fact they've been doing multiple tapings together for shows that have lasted. Say they've done 4 shows off the belt, if they could, when they haven't all been shut down by the current global bastard that they haven't been testing for. But still, it's an interesting one, this, because I would have assumed that a lot of it would have gone down, but then again, I think people don't maybe or certainly underestimate how much goes into the actual production for all of these shows, and the travel arrangements that go with taking performers to and from, including accommodation and stuff. So these are interesting numbers.
Yeah, jaw-dropping when I saw the difference. And obviously, everyone mind immediately goes, well, guess Black Wednesday didn't need to happen, which we also said at the time didn't need to happen, and that it's happened. They took the flak for it. They will continue to take the flak for it, quite rightly. But yeah, I like you say, I assumed, oh well, yes, it costs a lot to go around the country and around the world putting on these shows, but they make it back in gate receipts and stuff. Well, they probably do make enough money back. There's a reason they do it. But geez, it could be very interesting to see how this, as with everything in the world now, how this affects things when they go back to normal. Because, like you say, if they can, this is a financially driven company. That's the reason why when we turn around and say, well, the ratings are bad and this is bad, and they don't care. As long as that money's rolling in, baby, it doesn't matter. I
mean, the fact that that's almost quadruple what their estimate was, that's madness. That is madness, and it's probably doesn't bode well, to be honest, because let's all think about how not good the product has pretty much been, especially on the main rosters, and it's even crept into NXT. I think we could all agree with that too. And if that's the standard and they can get that much profit back, doesn't fill me full of confidence, I'll put it that way.
No, and I glanced at something around sort of network subscribers. They seem to have stayed relatively the same. I think maybe a dip in... I think the amount of subscribers is still around the same. The amount of paid subscribers has taken a slight dip.
I think that's socials.
Yeah, the reports of...
The socials as well, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time have taken a bit of a hit. But that's, to them, I know they want to extend that, but I imagine that's the bottom of the rung when it comes to things for them. Money being at the very top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for some reason my mind immediately turned to tout when you started talking about that. I wonder how that's going. So basically, reports of WWE's death have been greatly exaggerated.
Just a bit.
They are going to be fine forever. Basically, there'll be one viewer at the end. His name will be Vince McMahon, and they'll be making $1 billion profit every bloody show or something. But I alluded to those releases there, and we have to talk a little bit more about Gallows and Anderson because the big LG, Doc Gallows, Luke Gallows, whatever you want to call him, was recently on the Wrestle Talk in the D podcast. He got interviewed on that. It's one of the best podcasts out there after ours. And he talked about chatting with AJ Styles after Gallows and Anderson were, of course, released by WWE. Styles basically said he was sorry to Gallows, but Gallows said, well, he didn't have to say that. I wasn't looking for an apology from him. He continued, it's been well documented, and AJ said it himself over his streaming service that he felt responsible for us staying when we wanted to leave last year. WWE kept wanting to pile more money. That wasn't the final reason we stayed. The reason we stayed was to be there and roll with our buddy. We ended up getting released when the ongoing global bastard, I'm not allowed to say that word, hit, but I couldn't blame him for that. He couldn't see the future. He just wanted to do what was best for his friends, and that was to convince us to stay. We ended up staying, but nobody forced us to do anything. No real surprises here, Adam Nicholas. I sincerely doubt that Gallows and Anderson were going to blame Styles for forcing them to stick around. We've heard reports on this on numerous occasions that they were pretty set on leaving. They wanted to go and do stuff with other promotions, particularly, of course, New Japan, and WWE were desperate to have them stay, throwing money at the problem until they just couldn't say no, basically. And then they turn around, having been promised all this money after, 6 months, and say, right, SUP 45 lads, it's such a... Those contracts baffle me all the time because it's not a 3-year or 5-year contract. It's sort of a 1-month rolling contract by the looks of this.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? And I think that those quotes we saw coming from that interview where they talk about Triple H basically saying to them, and I will be paraphrasing here, but like, when I think about AEW, I think about your families and, you know, what if that company goes under and all this kind of thing. WWE will have your back for life, and then this happens, and that's the result. And that stays with people forever, that kind of stuff. There's no getting away from that. Of course, they couldn't have predicted the global bastard turn up either, but they obviously have just made all our profits, so you can't really, there's no justification for it whatsoever.
No.
But ultimately, no surprises here that Luke Gallows and Anderson aren't hating on AJ Styles. They are called the Good Brothers for a reason. They know who other Good Brothers are, and it would be impossible to blame Styles for that. Yes, he might have wanted his mates to stay. Yes, they probably did want to stay and help him out, but ultimately, WWE were paying good money as well, so everybody was a winner at that point, and Gallows and Anderson are, by their own admission, very similar to the likes of Nash and Hall back in the day. They go where the money is, and that's exactly what WWE was offering at the time. So
glad to see them doing stuff in Impact Wrestling now. I know there's been reports of them doing new stuff in New Japan as well, of course. I think if we did a top 10 list of wrestlers you want to go for a beer with, those two are right at the top of the list for me. I love those guys.
I'd love to go for a brewski with those boys as well, definitely. But when they're in New Japan, and you know when they go out after shows and they get it all paid for by the guys who are the promoters, that's when I want to go for a beer with them. I want to sit in Tokyo and be like, all right, it's on someone else's book. Let's show me a good time in Japan. That's great. But you did mention Impact Wrestling there, so let's segue across nicely to our last story of today, which revolves around Jeff Jarrett and Impact Wrestling. Now, for those of you who know, Jarrett was in the middle of a law case with Anthem Sports and Entertainment, who obviously own Impact Wrestling, over the misuse of some of his footage from Global Force Wrestling. Now, he said that they'd used his footage without consent, and that was the whole crux of this legal argument. Now, it had been reported previously that Anthem had actually called for a mistrial. That was yesterday. So in the early hours of 10 a.m. I think it was yesterday, there was a sort of discussion as to whether the court case was going to be thrown out. Now, we have an update regarding that from PW Insider, who say that apparently, I'm going to have to read the notes because I'll always get his name wrong, the Tennessee Chief Judge Waverly D. Crenshaw has officially declared a mistrial. There's no further details at the moment as to why that mistrial has happened, of course. This case in itself has actually been delayed multiple times because obviously with the ongoing global bastard, it has changed the dates multiple times. But now Jarrett and Anthem find themselves in a position where they'll either have to take the rescheduled court date in September, or of course could potentially solve it outside of court, depending on how much they want to go through with it. But given the fact, I assume he's probably very upset about this usage, that might not happen, Adam Wilborn.
Yeah, interested to see what he does from here. You'd want everyone to kind of move on, but Jeff Jarrett believes he's justified in his actions. I sense this is probably going to rumble on and on, but let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Chris, who says, has Taz proven he's better outside the ring than in? I grew up loving him, but his commentary, podcasting, and managerial skills are blowing his in-ring career away, IMO.
Yeah, I think the guy's got exactly what you want from a presenter kind of standpoint. The guy's really good on the mic. We've seen him, I think, excel. A lot of people probably weren't expecting maybe the excel that he has with Brian Cage. Some people even, to the point where I saw that GR was obviously talking about positioning on camera and stuff, saying that sometimes he thinks Taz might need to take a step back because he wants Brian Cage to be the one who everyone's looking at. I'm not sure I agree with that. I feel the strong kind of Paul Heyman vibes from Taz, where he's just incredible. He commands the microphone. Yes, maybe placement. Brian Cage is the one who's going to be the star at the end of all this. But I mean, he was great on comedy when he first came in, and I feel like learned a lot. Which was the thing I noticed most. Like from his time on SmackDown commentating with Michael Cole, it felt like he just knew his cues better and was a lot more patient, which I just think is great. I mean, who would have presumed that would happen in the latter stages of his career? The podcast and stuff's great for him as well. I would say I did love him as a wrestler, though. I did think he was a fantastic wrestler, and I don't want to undermine his wrestling career. I would still say, if he was obviously in the kind of condition he would have been back then, I would happily have had him continue wrestling. But ultimately, no shade on what he's doing right now, because he's doing some great stuff.
No, exactly. I'm just double checking something. It was the Royal Rumble 2000 he debuted on, wasn't it? Yeah, it is. Which is what Simon Miller's doing ups and downs on today.
Yes, he is. Segue. There you go. Tie in.
But yes, unforgettable.
2 o'clock, you can get that, by the way, on our YouTube channel.
I think he was a phenomenal wrestler, which, you need to go and check out some of his ECW stuff to really, truly appreciate him. But yeah, sensational on the mic. I like the fact he did a little jab towards that suggestion that he should stand further backwards on this week's Dynamite. I love Taz. I think he's one of the voices of wrestling in my childhood. His call of Eddie cheated with that move as he pins Brock Lesnar on No Way Out will stay with me forever.
And on top of that, when you're talking about calls that he made, let's give Taz props where he deserves it, because WWE and Brock Lesnar will have marketed Suplex City for years and years now, but Taz is actually the first man I recall ever saying that. It was when it was Randy Orton, it was Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle. That was a triple German suplex that happened where Rey goes absolutely flying. And the call comes from Taz, Suplex City. I don't know if he says Suplex City bitch, mind you, but he does say Suplex City.
Yeah.
So credit where it's due there. I hope you're getting those residuals, Taz. You definitely aren't, but you should be.
But as a commentator and now as a manager right now, he's doing wonderful
Brilliant
stuff.
stuff.
They really protected him in his loss to Brian Cage. That's who he is. To Jon Moxley. I thought he's great, and I think he could talk fans into the building if they were allowed in the building. Second question today comes from Jake, who says, for NXT TakeOver, could NXT make big ladder stunts safer for performers, since there won't be any live crowds to see any trickery, such as crash pads out of camera view for when a wrestler jumps off the ladder to the floor? This, of course, the North American Championship match. What do you reckon? Wrestler safety in WWE?
Synergy. I would like to see it. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the performers would much appreciate not. Well, I say that now. Actually, the performers might appreciate not having to take the bumps, but I bet there's a little pride in taking those bumps deep down, and they'd be like, "I don't need a crash mat. I'm going to take that bump. It's going to be wild." They could obviously, like we saw them do this with Velveteen Dream, didn't we? Where he jumped off the turnbuckle to do like an elbow drop over the barricade, and they kind of had the two cuts, which made it look cleaner. If it's going to look good and not hokey, then absolutely, I'm all for it, and I'm all for the wrestlers being safer as well, because it means they won't get injured and have to be out for a long time. But yeah, this might work, I guess. But also, a lot of wrestlers probably also want the unique, organic feel of it too, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea. Like you say, getting the wrestlers to agree with it is a different kettle of fish. And you're always going to have the wrestling fans who are going, "Oh, did you see that camera cut?" So they obviously didn't take that horrendous back bump to the outside. You take it then. Why don't you take it?
Well, the thing is, though, we saw that incredible, it's like the multi-tag match with the Young Bucks and all that on Dynamite. And multiple people ended up getting like minor injuries and some proper serious injuries from that. So though that's the toss-up from it, I guess. Brilliant match, I should point out. Will last in the pantheon of time in tag team matches, which is exactly what you want, I guess. But those guys are going to get injured, and that's...
Yeah.
You got to
sure if you went back in time and offered the Blade a crash mat for when he missed the Young Bucks and the table on the outside, he'd probably take it.
Oh, man, yeah.
That was a rough old bump.
Yeah, it was.
Final question today comes from Sean Acklin, who says, I'm still trying to recover from that god-awful finish from the Raw Women's Championship match. Besides the obvious finger poke of doom, what's a worse way for the title to change hands?
Well, I'm going to go rogue on this, because I know what you all want me to go and find, like, the wildest, strangest, like, ones. But I'm just going to talk about two recently that would be the weirdest title changes. I guess the one that immediately comes to mind is Braun Strowman, and I know that doesn't technically fit what you're saying, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because he was just inserted into a match for no real reason. Bill Goldberg ended the run of The Fiend, which was like such a huge thing at the time. Squashed it for the sake of a match with Roman Reigns that never happened. No explanation. Braun takes the belt. It's just, that for me is worse than any kind of hokey finish, in my opinion.
You have to mention the screw job, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
There's that done.
Well, this is the thing. I knew you'd have the list of all of the kind of ones we're going to go down this road, the obvious ones.
Yeah, so I'd go for that one. I'd also go for Vince Russo winning the WCW World Championship by getting speared through the wall of a steel cage when Booker T could have just walked out the door to win the title.
Yep.
It was so simple.
It was right there. It was right there. The door was right there.
David Arquette winning the title, Mr. McMahon winning the title, and most importantly of all, Jinder Mahal winning the title. It was just crap. It wasn't like a crap way of getting there, although the Sings just had to take a beating and then they just copy-pasted that for every other title defense he had. Just rubbish. But let us know in the comments section below, I'm sure. Let's move on to today's And Finally. Rusev's or Miro has been banned from Twitch for being too sexy. Right, now I've covered that. And finally, but I don't know. That's all I've seen the tweet, so I have no idea. But Trish Stratus tweeted overnight, thanks for your order at Sasha Banks and at Bailey. And you're welcome. If you guys haven't grabbed your greatest tag team pack yet, you can get one here. And she posted a photo of herself and Lita as the action figures signed to Sasha and Bailey from your role models, Trish and Lita. So whilst that's a nice little nod, could they? Adam Nicholas, could they?
Of course they could. Why wouldn't they? Like, why on earth wouldn't they? Because that's a match everybody would love to see, I'm sure. And not only that, I would have liked to have seen it a year ago, but I'd like to see it even more now because these two, Bailey and Sasha that is, have hit the stride like no other. They are right in the middle of it. And if we are looking for ways to extend that run, if they are indeed going to make it to WrestleMania, then we need good stuff that's going to get our attentions and not going to be a pain in the backside. I always will come back to it. But that run between Survivor Series and WrestleMania for Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey was nicht gut. Not for me. We need something exciting if it's going to hold them over till WrestleMania and give them that
Maybe
moment.
You could put it on at either Tushin instead of bloody Payback or the Saudi show that's definitely not happening. So it's just a thought, WWE. Let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts, including, of course, the SmackDown preview a little bit later on and Wrestle Culture with a hashtag bloody good quiz. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Whilst you're there, follow both of us. You can follow Adam Nicholas at
It's Adam Nicholas, and you can follow Adam Wilborn at
Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. That's been a bit of a long one today, but go outside if you're in England. Enjoy the sunshine. It's bloody lovely out there. Too hot, if anything. But for now, my thanks to Adam Nicholas. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.